Welcome to a new daily top Askreddit video. Today's topic. What's a small act of kindness you were once shown, that you'll never forget? So once in high school, I ate at a Mexican restaurant and unknowingly threw away my car keys on my tray when I was done eating. I went and asked a worker if he had cleared them off the table and he said no, but that he had just taken the trash out to the dumpster. I remember going outside and calling my dad to ask if there was a spare and he told me number. So I went back inside feeling humiliated and about to ask if I could look through the dumpster only to see that this man had already dug through the dumpster on my behalf and ended up finding my keys for me. He just went above and beyond, and to this day I am so grateful for his help. I have a kinda similar story. I was at a restaurant downtown where I live, about 30 minutes with public transport. I borrowed my mother's one-year subway card, which was pretty expensive for me, but managed to drop it under the table. Card slid out of my pocket. After I ate, I took the subway home, without realizing I'd dropped it. Came home, couldn't find the card and started to panic. Took the subway back, and just about managed to catch the waitresses closing up. As I explained my situation, one of the waitresses recalled that she had thrown the card in the trash thinking it was an empty card. I offered to dig through the trash myself, but apparently one of the girls in the back had overheard, and was already digging. She found my card, and was probably just as excited as me to find it. I'll forever be grateful for her help. No matter what the reason, or thing is that you are looking for, once you start digging through trash to find something you are pretty much always going to be excited to find it because 1, no more digging in the trash, and 2, the trash digging that you did was worthwhile. Combine this with the fact that they helped someone out, it makes sense that they would be more excited than you. Not to brag, but I have dug through a fair amount of trash in my time, so I know what I am talking about. I missed my train to go home for Christmas from Ui due to a crash near the station. I was completely broke and knew I wouldn't be able to afford another ticket. Life just got on top of me, knowing I'd have to spend Christmas alone in my shitty student house and not being about to see my granddad who was in rapidly declining health. I was bawling my eyes out on the platform when a janitor appeared out of a hidden stockroom under a stairwell and brought me some tissues. He found out why I was so upset and said leave it to me. Took me to the customer service desk and got them to reissue me a ticket for the next train home. I was so thankful I started bawling again and he went on his way. Then just before I was about to get my train he found me on the platform and gave me some snacks and a can of Coke, and it's just the nicest thing anyone's ever done for it. Wow, I feel like I'm walking through a museum and every single story of kindness I read looks like a masterpiece painted by the most skilled craftsman. It's unreal how much beauty there is in these simple acts of kindness. Thank you so much for sharing this story. I broke my foot and was trying to limp my way across campus with crutches in the pouring rain. Someone ran over with their umbrella and walked across campus with me so I wouldn't get rained on. This reminds me of a time in 3rd grade, where I had a really messed up leg after an injury resulting in internal bleeding, caused by my hemophilia. I was limping across the school grounds, when a much older student helped me by picking me up, and carrying me all the way to the other side. My story isn't as dramatic, but yours reminded me of it. It was one of the first days of my 6th grade year. I was so tiny and scared of middle school. My class's lockers were by the 8th grade class's lockers. I was struggling to open mine when some huge 8th grader walks up, asked me for the combination, opened it, and just walked away. Alternator died while I was driving home from university. Engine died as I exited the freeway in the middle of the night in a not so pleasant part of town in the days before cell phones. As I'm pushing my car out of the intersection, a guy in a truck comes up and offers to push my car to my neighborhood a good 3 miles away. He does so, and I'm pulling into my neighborhood. He simply gives a wave and drives off into the night. I never even had a chance to thank him. Ones like this always get me a little more. Where the person is very obviously just doing it to be a good person, so much so they don't even let you say thanks. In the Jewish religion, anonymous giving is the highest form of giving. I was in NYC taking a lunch break at a job I absolutely hated. I was sitting eating alone at a McD's, and after about 15 minutes this man in his 40s or 50s, I'm a 28-year-old male at the time, goes up to me and says something like, "Hey man, you look really sad. Things will get better." And just shook my hand. Takes a lot for one adult man to offer that up to another strange man. Really cheered me up. Moments like that can be so powerful. I had a friend invite me out to dinner once, and when I arrived, she just hugged me. I broke down and cried. I'd been struggling with depression for so long and nobody close to me had noticed, but this couple I'd met on holiday and seen a few times since had seen something and took the initiative to ask, "Are you okay?" without having to ask. "Hope you're doing better." I was around 19 years old in my first year of community college. My dad has lost his job and my mom was supported my entire family. We were struggling for a while. I remember being in my night class one day starving. I figured there'd be no dinner, so I told myself I'll go straight to bed when I get home and not think about being hungry. When I got home after class, there was a giant box of Costco pizza on the kitchen counter. Apparently one of our neighbors had bought it for us because my dad fixed a part of her fence a few months back. I think it stuck with me because I was so fucking hungry, and the chances of her bringing food that night of all nights was insane to me. It might sound so stupid, but I'll never forget it. I bet that pizza tasted so good too. Hunger is the best spice. I literally coasted into a gas station out of gas on my motorcycle, then realized I didn't have my wallet. Some lady saw me patting all my pockets and that I was upset and offered to fill up my tank. I only let her put $5 in, which on a bike is a lot. But it meant so much to me. I ran out of petrol on my 125 not long after I started riding, didn't realize I'd go through my reserve as fast as I did. I managed to get a few more miles down the road by laying the bike on its left side to get a few more drops into the carb, but eventually it wouldn't work anymore. I was about to start pushing when a guy pulled up next to me and said no fuel. I said yes and he told me to wait. About 10 minutes later he came back with a jerry can of petrol and poured it in, but before I could offer him anything he said happens to the best of us and drove off. I assume he was a biker too and had the same happen to him once. He saved me the trouble of pushing the bike or getting recovered. I wish I knew who he was so I could repay him. Keep an eye out for the next rider. I stopped off the side of the road on a ride a couple weeks ago. I was just having a cigarette and stretching my legs, but it was remarkable how many bikers stopped to check, or slowed down and waited for me to give them a thumbs up in return. After my dad passed away, my depression kicked into overdrive. I went to the doctor and got a prescription for antidepressants. While I was picking up my prescription I started crying. When I apologized to the pharmacist for crying like a child, the pharmacist said, "You don't have to apologize. You recognize you have a problem and you are trying to fix it. That is a brave thing." It changed my perspective on treating my mental illness. I'm proud of you for getting the help you needed. Hope everything is going well for you. Thank you. Things are going much better now. Last year my son and I went to Lowe's to buy his grandpa a weed eater and a certain attachment that goes with it. Grandpa is a little older and slower than he used to be, but he does a lot for us, so we wanted to spend a little money to help make his life a little easier. As we get there, there's only one of the attachments left that we wanted. Well, there was a guy there getting it down for another customer. My son looked devastated. He knew how much his grandpa had been wanting this stuff and we were going to surprise him with it. My son looked at me and quietly said, "That's the last one. What are we going to do for Pa now?" Well, the guy overheard and saw the look on my son's face, so he casually handed it to me and said, "I think Pa needs this more than I do. I'll just get an IOU from the store." It was such a small moment for this guy, but it's one of those things that you witness that will literally help shape my son and his view of the world. After that, the saying, "It takes a village," didn't mean what I thought it meant every time I'd heard it before. Instead, it just made me realize that society, as a whole, is impacting all these young people in so many ways. And most of them don't even know it. This made me choke up a little. I was 9 years old, waiting for the school bus in Wisconsin winter. I had a thin coat, no hat or gloves. A woman driving past saw me and stopped, giving me a blanket from the back of her car. It was a long skinny one, so she wrapped it around my head and shoulders like a big scarf. I remember thanking her, but being confused. I told her I didn't know how I would give it back when I was done borrowing it. She hugged me and said not to worry. I still have that blanket. I love that you still have the blanket. I've posted this before, but I had finally decided to get out of my abusive home. I went to my college's financial aid office to see if I could qualify for a dorm. I was $50 short. I remember looking at the ground trying not to cry. I had finally gotten the courage up to leave and I still couldn't do it. The financial aid lady touched my shoulder, looked me in the eyes and said, "I believe you." It was the first time anyone had flat out said they believed I was being abused. She took out her own credit card and paid the last $50. She went with me to sign the lease and to get the key to my dorm. I stood with the key in my hand and realized I was getting out. I was going to be free. I broke down. She hugged me and told me to pay it forward eventually. I have no idea what her name is, but to the woman at Dixie College who took a chance on me, thank you. I pay it forward by speaking at therapy groups about how to choose not to be a victim and by sponsoring those who are in similar living situations as I was. Totally tearing up at your story.